Okay, so going over your review, here are your answers and how you can work it. You have your test tomorrow, so be prepared and be ready. Which linear equation in two variables represents a line that contains the point 3, -5, and -713? So this is my x1, my y1, my x2, and my y2. So the first thing we're going to do is 13 minus -5 over -7 minus 3. I'm going to change my double negative, and that becomes 18 over -10, which simplifies to -9 over 5. Okay, that's my slope. Now I'm going to do y minus -5 equals -9/5 times x minus 3. Again, I'm going to change that double negative. That becomes -9/5 x, and this becomes, I need to see if that'll simplify, because that becomes 27 over 5, which I don't think will simplify. (27 over 5). Bring down y plus 5 equals, subtract that 5. So now 27 over 5 minus 5 gives me 2/5. So I need the equation y equals -9/5 x plus 2/5. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, I already know that A doesn't work. I already know C doesn't work because the slope is 9 over 2. So is D. So I'm just going to check B. 9x plus 5y equals 2. I'm going to subtract 9x. That gives me 5y equals -9x plus 2. And then I'm going to divide by 5, which gives me y equals -9/5 x plus 2/5, which does match. So B is my answer. Okay, for number 2, what is the equation in standard form of a line that passes through the point 4, -8 and has a slope of 1/4? So using point slope again, we're going to do y minus -8 equals 1/4 times x minus 4. I'm going to change that double negative, and then I'm going to distribute. Okay, that gives me 1/4 x, and that gives me -1. So I have y plus 8 equals. Now, to get this in standard form, I need x and y on the same side. So I'm going to subtract 1/4 x. That gives me -1/4 x plus y plus 8 equals -1. I'm going to subtract the 8, and I get -1/4 x plus y equals -9. And now, just to get rid of the fraction, since it's a negative, we're going to multiply everything by -4. We multiply by the denominator, and if it's negative, by a negative. That becomes 1x minus 4y equals 36. So x minus 4y equals 36. A is my answer. For number 3, given that a line has a y-intercept of 0, 3, and an x-intercept of 4, a y-intercept of 3 and an x-intercept of 4, write an equation for the line. Well, you need to create the 2 points. So the x-intercept becomes 4, 0, and the y-intercept becomes 0, 3. And now we're kind of solving it like how we did on number 1. We're going to do 3 minus 0 over 0 minus 4, and that becomes -3/4. Then I'm just going to pick a point. I'm going to pick the x-intercept. So I'm going to do y minus 0 equals -3 over 4. Actually, yeah, I'll show it this way. Over x minus 4. Okay, the y minus 0 drops, so you just have y equals, and this becomes -3/4 x, and then when you multiply, it becomes a plus 3. So I know A and B aren't my answer because they don't have my slope. So it has to be C because D is the wrong slope also. For number 4, find the equation of a line that has the slope of -3/4 and a y-intercept of 1. Well, this is my M and this is my B. So y equals -3/4 x plus 1. Well, they are in standard form. So to get back to standard form, we're going to move the x back over here by adding 3/4 x. That gives me 3/4 x plus y equals 1. To get rid of the fraction, we multiply everything by the denominator, and that will give me 3x plus 4y equals 4, which is A. Okay, for number 5, what is the equation of a line that passes through the point 0, 3 and has a slope of 2? So point slope formula, because they give you a point and a slope, y minus 3 equals, the slope is 2 times x minus 0. So I have y minus 3 equals 2x, and that will become a 0, so you don't need it. We're going to add 3, so I get y equals 2x plus 3, which is A. Okay, for number 7, the table represents some points on the graph of a linear function. Which equation represents the same relationship? Okay, now if you look at your 4 answer choices, they're in the point slope form. So if you look, you notice that they use 268 and 20 in every problem. So I want you to just pull out this point and write it in point slope. Y minus negative 268 equals, I don't know m yet, so I'm going to put m times x minus negative 20. I'm going to fix those double negatives. And so I need to have a plus 268 and a plus 20. So I know B isn't my answer, or D. Now to find M, I'm just going to look at the change in Y over the change in X. Okay, from negative 196 to 268, that has a change of 72. And from negative 20 to negative 14, that has a change of positive 6. So I put 72 over 6. And 72 over 6 will simplify to 12. So now I know that my m is 12. So my answer has to be C. Okay, the table below shows corresponding x and y values. Which equation best represents this table? So the first thing you're going to have to do is to come up with an equation. To do that, you're going to have to pick a point from the table and do point slope formula, but that means we need the slope also. And since the answers are in standard form, you can do it once and convert it back to standard form, or if you don't like the way that I've been doing these and converting them back to standard form, you can always solve these for y equals, but I'm going to try to do the least amount of work. So first off, this is going down 5, and this is going up 2, so my m is negative 5 over 2. I'm going to pick to use the 0.42 just because it's smaller. So y minus, actually I'm going to write down here, y minus 2 equals negative 5 over 2 times x minus 4. Okay, I don't have any double negatives, so the first thing I'm going to do is distribute. So I get y minus 2 equals negative 5 over 2x plus 10, because negative 5 times negative 4 is 20, divided by 2 is 10. Okay, I need the x on this side, so I'm going to add 5 over 2x. That becomes 5 over 2x plus y minus 2 equals 10. So now I just add 2. I get 5 over 2x plus y equals 12. To get rid of the fraction, we multiply by the denominator, and you must multiply everything. So this becomes 5x plus 2y equals 24. And it's not A because that has 2 x's. It's not D because that's a 5y. It's not B because there's a 12, so C is my answer. All right. Number 10, which expression best describes the graph above? Well, you need to know M and you need to know B. So I'm going to start with B. I'm crossing at 2. There's another point right here, so I'm going to find my slope, which I'm dropping 2, running 3. So this would be negative 2/3, which can't simplify. So when I plug in my equation, y equals negative 2/3 x plus 2, I just need to find the one that matches. I know A is gone and I know D is gone because they're not negative slopes. So C has to be my answer because it is the correct y-intercept. Now determine the slope of a line that is perpendicular to the y-axis. So I'm going to draw me a graph. Here's X, here's Y. If I want a line that is perpendicular to the Y-axis, so if this is the Y-axis, I'll show it in a different color. Perpendicular means they cross at a 90, so a line would have to go this way. So if you were to look at this line has a slope of 0. Okay, Kit is saving money to buy a DVD player that cost $168. He earns $7 per hour working at the soda stand during basketball games at his school. In the table below, fill in the amount earned for each of the given hours worked. Okay, so we know he gets $7 per hour. Well, if he works 1 hour, that means he gets $7. If he works 2 hours, he gets 14. If he works 6 hours, so 6 times 7 is 42. If he works 10 hours, he's going to be getting 70. And if he works 15 hours, he gets 105. Okay, now it says write an equation that could be used to determine H, the number of hours Kit will need to earn $168. This is what he wants to make. Well, we know he makes $7 per hour, so that's your equation. And then how many hours will Kit have to work to purchase the DVD player? So we want to find H, so we're just going to take 7H equals 168 and solve for H. So 168 divided by 7 is 24 hours. Okay. Moving to 14, which of the equations has the slope of 1/4? Now, the cool thing about these is if they're in standard form, you have to solve for y equals. But if they're in y-intercept or point slope, you already know the slope because this is the slope right here and this is the slope right here. So this one is 1/4. 0.25 is also 1/4. So I know A and B work. So I can get rid of A. But now I need to see if C or D works. So you know that they have opposite signs, so only one of these is going to work. So hopefully the one I pick is going to work. So I'm going to pull over 5x minus 20y equals 32. And I'm just going to solve for y. So move the x by changing the sign. That gives me negative 20y equals negative 5x plus 32. And then I'm going to divide by the number in front of y. So negative 5 divided by negative 20 will give me 1/4 x. And I don't really care about my y-intercept because all I care about is the slope, and this is 1/4. So I know C also works. So I know that now B isn't my answer and D isn't my answer because C has to work. Okay, for 15, which of these lines has an undefined slope? Well, remember undefined U and D, up and down. So the line that's going up and down is line M. For 17, what is the equation of a line that passes through the point negative 2, 7 and has a slope of 0? Well, this is my M, this is my x1 and my y1, so this is point slope. We're going to do y minus 7 equals 0 times x minus negative 2, fixing that double negative. 0 times anything is just 0, so I can put 0 for both things and bring down y minus 7. I add the 7 and I get y equals 7. So I can cross off A and C, and my answer is D. All right, for 18, Jackie is creating a spreadsheet to keep a record of amounts she has collected from customers for candy boxes she has sold to them. She must write a linear equation in 2 variables to represent the amount collected in terms of number of boxes sold. She has been using the table below to determine the amount charged. Which linear equation in 2 variables can Jackie use to represent the amount collected in terms of number of boxes sold in her spreadsheet? Now I'm going to tell you there are 2 ways you can do this. You can do the math, so like figure out change in y over change in x. So 25.75 minus 12.25, and that would be 13.5. So if I have 13.5 over 2, this will become 6.75. So I know my slope has to be 6.75, which kind of automatically gives you your answers if you look at your answer choices. you know you can throw away A and B. It doesn't even have 6.75. And then 6.75 has to go with X because it's the slope. So your answer has to be D. But I'm going to tell you what you should do. Check it. Put 6.75x into y equals plus 5.5. I'm not in y equals. Okay, 6.75x plus 5.5. And go to the table. I went to the graph. My buttons are stuck or something. So go to the table. Make sure 1 is with 12.25, 3 is with 25.75, 4 is with 3250, 7 should be with 5275, and 10 should be with 73. And it is. So that has to be your equation. For 19, each month, Arnold receives $150 for working part-time at his uncle's camera store. For each camera he sells, he earns $125 bonus. Which equation can be used to find Arnold's total monthly paycheck based on the number of cameras that he sells? Okay, so they gave us M and B. Arnold starts with $1,050 no matter what, and he gets, $1,050 no matter what, and he makes $125 per camera. Okay, so all they asked me to do was write the equation. So I'm going to plug this into y equals mx plus b, so 125x plus 1050. I'm going to come over here and check. I know x has to go with 125. So I'm in between B and D, and it has to be B because we do start with some kind of a paycheck for just working. We don't only get paid based if we sell. For 21, what is the slope of the equation of a line parallel to the x-axis passing through the point 37? Okay, so again, I'm going to draw me a grid, x and y. I'm going to put the point 37 right here. I'm just guessing. And I want it to be parallel to the x-axis. So if I want it parallel to the x-axis, the line has to go this way. If the line is going that way, that is going across the y-axis, and it's going across the y-axis at the number of y, which is 7. And this kind of line has a slope of 0 because it's straight across. So the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of B and C because it's not an undefined slope. And then my options are y equals 7 or x equals 3. Since this line is a y equals, I'm taking A as my answer. For 22, the cost of running a cab at the Blue Cab Company is represented in a graph below. If x represents the distance the cab travels in miles and y represents the total cost, which equation models the total cost for renting a cab from the Blue Cab Company? Okay, so the first thing you need to do is come up with the equation, m equals and b equals. Well, this is starting at 5. And then I'm going to find 2 good points. So there's a point here, and there's a point here. And I'm going to get my slope. I'm rising 2, 4, 6. Be careful, it's counting by 2s. And it's counting by 1s here, so I'm running 1, 2, 3, 4, which this will simplify to 3 halves. So I have the equation y equals 3 halves x plus 5. And I need to get it back into standard form, so I'm going to subtract the x to get it back onto the other side. That gives me negative 3 over 2x plus y equals 5. To get rid of that fraction, we have to multiply by the denominator, but since it's negative, we also multiply by negative. So multiplying everything by negative 2, this will give me a positive 3x minus 2y equals negative 10, which the only answer that matches that is A. For 23, a representation of a linear equation in 2 variables is graphed on the coordinates plane below. Which linear equations in 2 variables can be used to represent the line? So 3 of these are in y equals and the other one is not. So hopefully one of them will match this. So I'm going to start with M and I'm going to start with B. My B on this problem is negative 3. And I'm going to look at their slopes. They have 5 over 2 and 2/5. So I'm just going to use it and see, am I rising 2 and running 5? That's a negative. So I know I can cross off B and C. So now I'm going to check, am I rising 5 and running 2, and that does work. So 5 over 2 works for my slope. So y equals 5 over 2x minus 3 is a good equation because that's where it starts. Now, that does match A, but I am going to check just to make sure. So I'm going to subtract 5x on D. That gives me negative 2y equals negative 5x minus 6. And then I divide everything by negative 2. And that gives me 5 over 2x plus 3. And there's the problem, plus 3. So A is my answer. Okay, 3 more. For 26, a table of values of a linear function is shown below. Sorry, these are really faint. It says determine the slope of the line. So what I'm going to do is use these nice numbers, not the ugly fractions. And I'm going to figure out my change in y over my change in x. From 1 to 7, we're going up 6. And from negative 6 to 3, we're going up 9. And 6 over 9 will simplify to 2/3. So C is my answer. For 28, the graph below illustrates the cost for renting a cab at the yellow cab company and the blue cab company. They just want to know what is the rate of change of the cost with respect to the number of miles for the yellow cab. Remember, rate of change is just another word for slope. So I'm going to make sure I'm looking at the solid line. Well, the solid line, you can pick any 2 points that you want to. There's 2 points right there that you can see. They are counting by 2's again, so be careful. We're going up 2, 4. And here they're also counting by 2, so I'm running 2. So my slope is 4 over 2, which will simplify to 2, so my answer is B. For the last question, find the slope that passes through the points -2, -4, and 3, 5. So to find slope, this is my x1, my y1, my x2, and my y2. We're going to do 5 minus -4 over 3 minus -2. If you want to use your calculator, you can, or if you want to just do the math mentally, this becomes 9 and that becomes 5. 9 over 5 cannot simplify, so my answer is 9/5. Now, I do want to share, if this is a free response question, like a griddable, you would need to know what that is as a decimal. So if you have this as a fraction, all you have to do is alpha y equals number 4, and it'll change it back to a decimal. So, or 1.8. Either of those would work. Okay, if you have questions, know that you're starting your test tomorrow. Ask me any questions. Make sure, even if you're absent, you're looking over it. Just because you missed a review day doesn't mean you don't take the test, and best of luck.